Hello everyone and welcome back to Credit and Conversation. I'm your host, Owen Macaulay. Joining us today is Stephen Mooney. Stephen is very well known and held in very high esteem in the Irish comic community. You would know his work from numerous books for DC and Marvel, but also his creator-owned series Half Past Danger, which is also currently being developed into an animated feature, which kind of brings Stephen's story in a way full circle, as he had originally began studying animation at the very start of his career before venturing full steam ahead into as a comic book artist and writer. So it was a great opportunity for me to touch base with Stephen and see what he's currently working on, just talk a little bit about just the day-to-day life as well of a comic creator, some unique news specifically for Irish comics and Irish artists in general, like the artist exemption grants that are available and the new income protection that's being introduced next year. So we talked just a little bit about that as well, and just even something as straightforward as how you sit at a desk all day long, and you gotta watch for your wrist, watch for your back. And my apologies, there may be a slight disruption along the way due to a Wi-Fi drop. Typically I record these episodes at different time zones, but obviously myself and Steve were in the same time zone, so I think it was heavier internet traffic than usual. But it shouldn't interrupt your enjoyment of this episode. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of Creator and Conversation with Stephen Mooney. Fantastic. Stephen, welcome to Creator and Conversation. And how are you today?
I'm grand. Thanks a million for having me. I'm a big fan of what you guys are doing over there at the Academy, so I'm glad to be part of it now.
Oh, no, really appreciate it. It's like you've always been, so I find you to be one of the most approachable people in Irish comics. You're always very generous, particularly at a convention. If people want to come up, ask for advice. And I think you and the, what was the group used to be, the Eclectic
Mix. Yeah.
We were actually thinking of that the other day in class. I was saying, so there used to be this group, and then I think it was like Jay Hankey, Cormac and Carey had like the sketch paddies afterwards.
Yeah,
and it's
like, right. They came up behind us. Yeah.
It's like everyone had their nicknames back then. But it's been great. Like yourself and Dex Shelby and like Nick Roach and stuff. You've been very good at coming back and passing it onwards. For yourself, how have you found like the big change now in quote unquote Irish comics? It seems to be like a global change now with digital comics, web comics. The online has changed so much, but what have you noticed as a big change yourself since kicking things off?
It's a good question. I've never really sat back and tried to quantify if there's a major sea change or anything, but I do think Irish comics are extremely well regarded now across the water in the States as a whole, which is, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that can be attributed to, I suppose we came in, way back, you obviously had your Killian Plunkett's and your Garth Ennis's, but they were kind of peripheral, but big names at the time. Garth obviously still is. But there was never really an Irish movement, I think, until I suppose it was the Eclectic Mix. We all got together and we were all so competitive, which is what you want, and being with your peers, like in an academy surrounding or any sort of environment where you're competing, you're helping, but you're also competing, so that like you're going to gee each other up a bit there. So we were very competitive with her, and then there was 7 or 8 of us all kind of hit at the one time. I suppose that was the like early 2000s. It seems like a million years ago now. And then, like you say, with the Sketch Buddies lads, with Rob and all those guys come up behind us, and they've been established now for, that's 15, like they're in years and years now. So we've really established a base. Now thankfully we've got some women on the scene now, brilliant women like Trina and people coming in behind us. So now we've got a bit of a more level playing field where we've got writers, we've got artists, we've got colorists, we've got everybody across the board, which means in Ireland, if it came down to it, we could produce probably a world-class comic, and probably have done at this point just ourselves. Not to make it that insular, obviously anybody who wants to get into mainstream American comics, it's the US side of things that appeal to us as kids and growing up with the Marvel, DC and such, which most of us now, or a lot of us, have managed to get our foot in the door with those bigger companies. And like I say, to go back to what I said about the reputation, we've got a reputational base now where the Irish are very well regarded as far as comes to deadlines and working hard, work ethic and deadlines. I mean, talent is a different conversation. We all know somebody who can draw very well, but the discipline side of it and the dedication side of it, which is what I kind of glom onto myself, because I feel like they're more my strengths than they always have been. Like I can draw but I've never been the best artist even in our group. I've never been the best artist in my opinion. Like there's other guys I think can draw circles around me, but I am good at getting my head down and doing the work. So the American editors really have recognized that. And now if I go to Marvel or Dick goes to Marvel or Will goes to Marvel or something with a book, they'll know that there's at least a baseline of quality and an expectation of deadlines being met, which is huge. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you can't elaborate enough how important that is. So I think that's what people think of when they think of, and I can tell you honestly, because I've had this conversation at the Marvel party in New York with the likes of CB Cebulski and people who are editor-in-chiefs at the very highest level of Marvel or DC. And they make jokes about like, we won't miss a deadline. We're there when we need it. Like, we'll come in a pinch. And I don't know if that's the reputation you want or don't want, but it's the reputation we have. And I mean, I'm at peace with it. Like, and I say that we've got newcomers coming in like Danny Earls now, where like he's kicking indoors and doing really. His work ethic is off the charts. Like, it's unbelievable. And I love that about him. And when we were giving him a bit of advice or mentorship coming in, myself, Will and Deck and others, that's the kind of stuff. Like, he's nailed on now because he works so hard, and the other guys are kind of like Keane Tormey at DC is the same. Like, he's flying and he's meeting all his deadlines. I don't think any of us, now it's a hell of a claim, but I don't think any of us have ever missed a deadline on any of those American books. I can't quantify that exactly, but to my knowledge, and I know most of the lads, like, I don't think anyone has ever, we don't blow deadlines. If we say we're going to do something, we do it. So it's built on reputation and honesty over there with the Irish. And we're in a great spot right now. And it's only when you start listing off people that I actually sit back and go, actually, we've tons of people now at this point. Like, for obviously, it's the Irish thing, isn't it? Punching above our weight, like with music or with art or with anything. We always seem to finagle our way into the where we kind of get in with the big boys and the big girls and just and like play at the big tables. But we seem to be, touch wood. And then your place obviously is encouraging that as well and helping people along as well. Like, I love seeing that in Ireland now. We've got a dedicated place where you can go and learn the craft, which is brilliant.
Yeah, it's interesting because part of the reason for the academy came even just from conversations and stories with the likes of yourselves, because when you started off studying, you kind of began with animation, wasn't it? You began studying animation, but there wasn't like a comic book related course. It's still sequential art, but it's not really specific towards it. And obviously now you seem to be making a return back to possibly towards the animation side in that like Half Past Danger's adaptation. It's gone around full circle. How's that been for you? Did you love that kind of marriage of going back to your early roots in animation and adapting your own work?
I do actually. I don't know, I think it was you I was actually saying to, maybe last year or some point, I was feeling a bit of an itch to kind of just branch out a bit or do something else. Like when you were saying you were setting up the academy, I was like, oh, something I've always thought in the back of my head, I'd love to end up like teaching or like in Ireland if there was a like that kind of thing. So I was kind of looking for something else. And then just serendipity, the lads, Studio Meala, like this brilliant Irish studio, which have been doing so well with Disney. And again, they're building their reputation, they're doing the hard work. We're putting the hard yards in, so I kind of see a little bit of similarity there. And then again, Animation Ireland is punching above its weight again. Like, we're brilliant at doing that and leaning into that. So the lads came to me and they had read the book back when the first one came out. And like you say, I studied animation in college purely because it was the closest thing I could find to studying comics. So we had the Joe Kubert School in the States, and I know Declan actually looked into, like, he found out the yearly rates and things like that. And it was just, the American system is so different. It's astronomical fees, and like none of us could afford that. So animation for me and a lot of the other guys seemed like the way to go, because like you say, there's sequential art, there's location drawing, there's visual language, there's life drawing. Like, a lot of the same beats and tenets of comics are present in animation, especially with storyboards and things like that, which is what I leaned into, which is very, very similar. And pacing is very different, but the kind of the language of storyboards there's so much in common with comic books. So now that I find myself, I'm really hands-on actually, which is great, because I do have a bit of, like, I worked in animation for a few years at Boulder Media and places. So I've actually been in the trenches a bit there while I was sending my portfolio around in the States. Animation for me was always just a means to getting into comics. And now I'm involved with the film and I'm co-writing the screenplay and I'm like looking at character designs and I might storyboard a sequence down the line or something like that. So like, it's all, and they're very, very open to me being involved. So like it's a real different set of muscles that I can flex. And then I just finished doing a couple of weeks writing on that last week, and I enjoyed it so much just because it's so, it's different. It's not so different, but it is different. It's just different enough that I'm comfortable that I can handle it. You know what I mean? Like, it's not finally different. Like, if I was going to go off and be a mechanic or something, I'd be terrified because I wouldn't know how to do it. But with there's enough crossover with animation that I can bluff my way in like I've done with a few other things and kind of be like, yeah, I'll totally know what I'm doing. That's no problem.
And
Manage to convince them.
no, it's brilliant because, like, honestly, it's what's really interesting here in Ireland is the animation industry and the video game industry as well. They're getting a
Yeah,
lot of attention from the government, a lot of funding. There's a lot of tax breaks and such that are happening there. Over in the UK at the moment, the UK government seems to be sitting up and paying attention to comic books a lot more. I think it's long overdue because they had Dundee and they've had all that for so long. They've been manufacturing them for such a long time. I wonder if it's just going to be a matter of time before we see a kind of a focus now here in Ireland towards more the comics to animation. They've announced the artist income protection coming up
yeah.
next year. So that could be a game changer for a lot of people. It's like a guaranteed minimum amount of income for an artist. If you're a comic book creator, that's like, as you could probably attest to, yeah, you don't get the comics for money.
Oh, man, yeah, no. I was laughing. It's one of the reasons I was. It's one of the reasons I was thinking like maybe I should try something else because I've like I remember I had made a list when I was a teenager. I was like, these are the three things. If I can achieve these things, I'd made it. Like, that's it. Job done. It was work for Marvel, work for DC, and have my own book at Image. That was the three, which I've now done those a few times over. And it's kind of like, oh, brilliant. Not rich. I'm definitely not rich. So I'm like, oh, what's the angle there? Like, and I'm doing all right. Like, so people like who are a lower level or like indie people, like you can imagine how much they must be struggling at times. So I love this stuff that's coming in, like the income scheme and then even the tax exemption scheme, which we've all been on for donkey's years now. I think I was the first one to do that in Ireland, which was nuts. Now we've got loads of people doing it. So Ireland is brilliant at encouraging those things. Like you say, they could go even a little bit further. And hopefully that will get encouraged with the income scheme. And like even the Arts Council are coming around a bit on comics now, like the Irish, because I used to apply for things. I applied for the first Half Past Danger, whatever, 10 years ago, and they wouldn't even consider it. But now, if I would go with an application, they'd give it a legitimate look. And they told me that something like Half Past Danger is a bit too commercially minded for what they do, which is fair because what they should be doing is supporting maybe up and coming people or people who need it a bit more than people like me might need it, which I'm totally on board with. And that's fun. But I know they support some of like the books that the Kickstarter books that the lads were doing. Who was it?
Break?
Yeah. I think they got some sort of Arts Council support. So it's obviously out there for people, which is great. And like you say, the income protection scheme, which is coming in on a grander scale after they did their trial, and, it seems to have been successful. That can only be encouraged. But it's all, there's so much talent here. Like on one hand, I'm giving them credit for doing it, but on the other hand, I'm like, lads, you should be leaning into it so much more. The amount of ability and talent, whatever it is in the water in Ireland, we have that artistic, innate storytelling ability. So they should be leaning into that with video games, with comics, with animation, and they are now with the tax breaks for the movies and stuff like that, which is great. But they could spread it out a bit more across the board because that's hugely our cultural identity internationally as well. So it's very good for the country and our reputation as a people to see that stuff coming out from Ireland. And it's such a hotbed of activity and a base for creativity and pure talent. And like I say, discipline and hard working, which has been in our culture here for generations now. And I feel like we still have it and we can foster that and lean into it. And when we put all that together in a big stew, like it's a recipe for success. So I mean, and like I say, seeing you guys lean into that's brilliant. And hopefully their government are going to have some sort of support for colleges and schools and things like that, because I'd say it's certainly needed and appreciated.
Well, what's interesting, the way we set up here is here in Ireland, to get a academic award like a BA or certificate, you go on the National Framework Qualifications, NFQ. And the body that oversees that is QQI, Qualities and Qualifications of Ireland. And they say this is a level 6, that's a certificate. It's the equivalent of first year of a BA. A level 7 is like a 3-year ordinary BA, and a level 8 is like an honours BA. And I had just finished up about a decade or so as a program director teaching animation. And after that, I was like, as you mentioned with Joe Kubert School and other schools for fees, a lot of that is because, particularly here in Ireland, if you see a high fee, it's because you're a private college. So that means you're not getting any of the government supports. And like, it's crazy because bigger institutions like Trinity and stuff don't get the government funding. Really? But but they're not private, you see. So they're technically public. So you get all that. When you look into the fee, then if I was to go on the NFQ, you would have to bring up costs astronomical, and you would have to partner then with someone. So you would have to have student union, designated library space. So a lot of smaller private colleges would partner with a large institute. So the decision I made early on was either go onto the NFQ and then charge, and it gets a little complicated then what you want to do, because you could be spending a lot of time on red tape, or we could just make comics and get into distribution. So far, I think people seem to be responding to. We've gotten some good speakers coming in. They've helped to legitimize the institution, the fact that they're giving us time and attention. And we've partnered with a local newspaper who do the strips. So basically, people who come to us, we can say we guarantee you 30,000 readers. Now, it's local, but it's still good numbers when you look at comics, indie comics as a whole. Yeah, exactly. So these are the things you kind of have to weigh up. But it's like, as you were saying in your own story, like you're getting into animation to break into comics, and now there's other options as well. If you have a comic idea, there's like crowdfunding and such, and you've had experience in that field as well. How have you kind of found the whole crowdfunding? So is that something you would look to return to again, or is it something that you're glad you've experienced it, but you're more happy dealing with like publishing partners? Would it be?
Good question. Would I do it again? I did have a good experience with it, and I found it was quite successful. But like so many people you hear saying, it's the fulfillment at the end that's the tough. Like you're on your own. Now again, there are places now that you can partner with, and they will look after the fulfillment. But for me, if I'm doing a hardcover or something, like posting that to the States, or like I was posting to New Zealand, to Brazil, to like I think Africa, a few copies. Like it's literally all over the world. And the postage costs now, especially for a heavy item like a hardcover, it's way up there. So you really have to factor in those costs. But at the same time, I do think it's brilliant where you're direct to your source or your inverted commas fan base. And I was like, I've got Half Past Danger 3 coming up next year, the third series, and I was really like weighing up whether, like, because Image would said they'd do it, and that's the way I've gone with it. But I was really thinking that maybe I should just go the crowdfunding route, because it could be first off, it'd be more money. Like there's no like, I mean, if you go the Image route, the issue sales, you do okay. But if you get your graphic novel out, that's when you theoretically start to see some money when you get some book sales. Whereas if you do the crowd sales route, you'll get that upfront money, and then you can fund yourself, if all gone well, for a year or something, and just sit down and do the work. So that's very tempting. But then the fulfillment is the killer. Like, and I want it to be nice hardcovers like I have been doing before, so which kind of handicaps myself to an extent. But if I was doing like a floppy or something else, I would consider it. I think, if it wasn't going to be hardcover, I definitely would consider it. I think it's brilliant though, and it only seems to be as it goes on. Like I just backed the Danger Girl, the artist edition. Scott Dunbeer does all those, and I was chatting to him about it, and it's done gangbusters. It's done huge. Like, so I think like this now, obviously he's got a huge name, J. Scott Campbell, and he's got a huge following behind him, which makes it a lot easier going in, the less obscure you are. But and he's got a team around him like doing it like that. So there's so many caveats and ifs and buts. Like, it's very hard to just cut and dry say this is better. It's very much horses for courses on whatever your product is. But the fact that it's viable, and the fact that comics is now seen as a staple on crowdfunding sites, I think is brilliant. And it's something that I probably will lean into at some point in the future, I think.
Yeah, and the shipping is insane. Like, even for us, when I went to post a €5 comic the other day, send it by tracking post just so you keep an eye on it. It goes, it's €18 just for the postage.
Yeah. I've got a rule of thumb, where if there's a Kickstarter I want to back, but if the postage is more than the actual item, I'm like, well, I'm out. Like, that's for me is just. I hope the stores get it in at some point at that point, because I can't rationalize paying more for postage than you do for the item itself.
Yeah, we've tried to streamline it here, because obviously before the Academy we had Light and Strike comics, and we keep that as the publishing arm in it. And so I literally bought the printing press. And the way it goes now is, if I'm knocking off a comic, we have a Wix store. So if someone orders something, it goes bing, one order, and I literally just go and print it and then guillotine it. So it's like printing. Exactly, just like that. And I'm like, it does help in some regards, but then it depends on the nature of the project. Like, if you're doing like a license IP or something, then you'll have to sell a lot. Then you're doing bulk orders, and then that's not viable. But for the credit anthologies, it's a very viable model to do. It's trying to get the balance kind of in between, and just digital comics is something we've gotten more into in recent years. I think that's been great because there is a shift I find to direct to consumer in a lot of the stuff now. And
Yeah.
I think COVID and lockdown kind of led to it. But then it's kind of generational because younger people don't like buying anything digital
Mm.
because they're like, I can access that for free. And then older people, they might want the content, but they don't like, and they have the income to purchase it, but they
Mm.
don't like looking at a screen basically.
Yeah.
And the collector's mentality can be a little different as well. Have you much experience in the digital comics realm? Have you ever considered it?
I'm so biased. It's ridiculous. I mean, like I do that, like a lot of people. Like when I did the Kickstarter for the Half Past Angel, the Christmas thing, I did provide obviously digital copies with every sale. Like, but I'm in the camp you're saying with the old farts who just don't. Looking at a screen feels like work to me. Um, Whereas I'm a big fan of analog, and like my 4K movie collection is only getting bigger and everyone else is going the other direction. So I'm like, I'm kind of a stick in the mud for artifacts. Like I love to hold things in my hand still. For me, the comics is holding, like it reminds me of being a kid is when I crack open a comic, and it's that kind of it's just what you get from the tactile aspect of it. I'm not interested in digital, but I have to recognize at the same time that that's a market that exists, and like maybe I should be leaning into that a little bit more, to be honest. But it hasn't been really something that's been on my radar as much as it should be, maybe.
Yeah, I was actually speaking with just even Trina Farrell today in the studio, and it was saying like she does a lot of work on Patreon, and that's a great way as well. That's the best of both worlds, so you
Yeah.
can have a following, post online, and then a lot of people go down that route. If you build up the follower, you can then take to the printed book then as
Yeah.
well. And yeah, it's just another avenue. It's interesting, but these are like conversations that like 15 years ago, no one's really having because the technology wasn't there. Um, and so with the change of technology as well, obviously the most disruptive has been AI. That's been the big change that's been coming. And I remember we were on Christmas break and we just came back, and all my colleagues in academia were losing their minds because AI. They were like, "Do we go ahead and with these certain
Yeah.
assessments now?" What happens?
Yeah.
That is the end of the world. It's still it's there's a discussion around it, like ethical use of AI and the academic factor. It's been interesting to see what tools it's being used for and how they want to encourage it. But I speaking academically, I'm worried about the loss of critical thinking
Yeah.
with such
100%.
such. But in comics, how have you found it? Has it been coming up on your radar much? Has anyone like?
A couple of times, but I have to say, as soon as I see it anywhere, it gets squashed straight away. There seems to be a backlash immediately, and we just saw Jim Lee in New York coming out and he's talking, saying that they wanted to say that they were adamantly anti-AI and they would never employ any AI in the creation of their comics. I think because comics is in ways, it's such an old school art form that people almost demand at least that creative aspect. They don't mind if it's done on a tablet in Asia or somewhere, like they don't know how the drawing is done as long as it's a person doing the drawing and there's that human creativity and input going into it. And I would agree with that. So far so good. It seems to be. There's been a couple of examples, and then you get it right. I've got friends who are writers who say, well, I can facilitate a whole comic book myself if I write the story and then get AI to draw some semblance of. I think it's shocking looking, but it can be done to an extent, and then the question is, well, does that, it levels the playing field in that regard? But then that's a job an artist could have done, a paid job that an artist could have taken. So there's so many ways of looking at it. For me, I'm not a fan of it. I can see why. I can 100% understand why it'd be used in menial tasks. Like my wife works in pharmaceuticals and she's a director in a pharma company, and they use AI to just go through files and check for spelling mistakes or just to collate material and information and stuff. And I'm like, fair enough. It'll all end up people losing their jobs, but you can't stop progress. So whereas I'm okay with that. I can accept that. That's a very menial task that AI can do, but because there's no human creative input, there's no soul required for that job. But if it's anything where there's an opinion required or input, like I'm not really into the chat GPT or anything. And going on the academia, I don't know how you guys do it now. Like if you have to grade an assignment or a paper or something, how do you establish the fact that first off, AI wasn't used in the creation of this project, and then are people using AI to grade the project and others? Like, I don't know, that must be an absolute minefield.
Well, what's happening now at the moment is we request all students to submit as a Word document if it's a written format, And that way we can see their progress. They have to save all previous drafts. So if someone's just updating a file or copy and paste, it will look suspicious. We also have levels of permission to use AI. Like some people can say you can use it to generate an image or a graph.
Right.
As far as I've used it and my colleagues, it's been purely just to review content, like for spelling and grammar. Now, some people can ask AI to review something critically, ask it questions, then give you prompt questions to review.
Yeah.
But I'm like, don't go down that route, because again, because it's taking your critical thinking.
But you're not flexing those muscles if you do, like you say, like the critical thinking aspect. If you're not actively practicing that, when does it come to the point where you can't recognize whether something is valuable or correct, and you're like, oh shit, I'll just get the computer to do it. Like that's where you get to the end of Wall-E and everyone's just sitting in big and then the world is automated around you. Like that's the doomsday scenario, I think. Don't know the answer is.
Yeah, it's like it's a brave new world with some of it. And the way I look at it is, a few years ago, I was down in the American ambassador's house in Phoenix Park, and he had Brad Bird there, the producer behind Iron Giant. Yeah, he's like a few folks, and for some reason, the chief technologist of NASA, all in the same room.
And what are you all doing in that?
I know, honestly, I'm not even sure how even I ended up there at that point. I think someone said, "Oh, this sounds interesting. You should go," and I was like, "All right." So I went there, and the guy from NASA was saying there exists something called citizen technology, which was, they didn't develop it, but like video game companies would develop this type of engine, but they were able to map and simulate what a black hole would look like. And this is before the Hubble telescope depicted the first black hole, sent it back. So that was proving like how technology can like help further our learning in that regard. And then another guy, I think
was it accurate then? Did it turn out to be accurate?
Yeah, because it was, the video game engines have to adhere to physics. So if you don't, they glitch. So you have to, even when you do something in 3D, if you say it's a worm's eye point of view looking up at a tree and a cat stuck in the tree, well, then you have to animate everything to go with it. Or you can just do a straight ahead POV with some of the branches. That's easier. So that's where the director would kind of come in and maybe change a shot just because if it's a 3D feature for it. But there's another guy from a video game company, and they were saying like how they were using something called Holo, which is like a hologram, but the whole thing was trying to get to the holodecks in Star Trek. And I'm like, if we can get there with this AI stuff, like I'm like, that's kind of what I'm seeing. Hopefully this is new forms of story, not to overwrite the forms of storytelling that we have, but if it's new forms of going on that we can do, then let's see what happens. But it's been curious. Every day I think people I think we're not got like original art sales, that seems to be doing quite well, and anything seems to be going up, particularly post lockdown. I don't see that changing with AI. Like no one's going to want to buy a particular,
it might become more niche, but I think it'll be, the further the likes they go, the more there'll be some people who want an artifact, who want a piece of actual artwork. So I don't think that market will go away. Well, at least I hope not, obviously, because it's necessary for comic book artists. But it's such that's a whole different discussion. Like the AI thing, very, very broad topic. Like, I guess who can be trusted to be the arbiters of what's good and what's bad, and who's in charge of what it's allowed to do or not allowed to do? It's just so many questions. Like, and obviously it needs to be regulated in some form, but who's going to decide that those regulations are going to be? I don't know. There's people smarter than me out there, hopefully, who are qualified to decide all that stuff.
Yeah, it seems overnight it just brought in. I think it's still very new. Then I was looking at some stuff. It's like been 3 years or something, since it first came into discussion. What's interesting with that is that's the duration of a BA in some cases. So there are people who have had this their entire third level career, and like we're going to see the effects now, of what this is. But in terms of upcoming projects for yourself at the moment, where you're working on the film, you were saying you spent a few weeks writing on that as well. Are you working on any upcoming comic stuff either for yourself or for over in the US?
I did a book last year called Free Agents, an image book with Kurt Busiek and Fabian Nicieza. So we're coming back for a second series. I'm on issue 3 of 6 at the moment, about to finish the 3rd issue. So I think by the time it comes out, I might finish it. I don't know. So that's coming out either the end of this year or early next year. and then hopefully all going well, unless I get offered something brilliant. You see, it's so hard to turn down things. I'm dying to do more Half Past Danger. Every time I say it, I just want to do more Half Past Danger. And I'm terrified if I wait too long, people won't want it anymore. You know what I mean? Because it's the one thing at conventions people are always asking me about. And I hope the movie hopefully will be a big help for that kind of thing. So we get that over the line. So I'm dying to get back to draw, just to wrap up that trilogy, just because I want to have it. Like, it's very important to me to finish that story to an extent. It's not, it finishes the story that's happened so far. It leaves it open again. Like, if I do want to come back to it, but at least it puts a cap on that. So I can go to my grave if it happens. No, when I finish it, like that's super important to me. That would be next year. All next year, I'd be working on that. So Free Agent next year, and then I mean, the movie, like, it looks good, but obviously there's no guarantees that we're all about backers and like co-production and stuff at the minute. All stuff again that I don't really understand, but sounds promising. But that's still at least 3 years away. You'd imagine it takes so long to make these features, and I'm getting to work on that throughout the process, which is brilliant. So that'll be a nice distraction for me, on top of the comics. And then I don't know, after that, like Half Past Danger the last Half Past Danger is going to be 2 shorter series, about 5 issues each, about 10 issues total. Like, so it'll be a 5-issue story, then a little break, and then another 5-issue story, and then that'll take me up until the end of 2027 almost. And then I'm going to clue. Might be looking for a job. I might knock on your door. I'll be like, all right, I'll give you a job. Let me pollute these minds.
It's,
don't know.
Yeah, it looks like it's like with the animation, would you be taking it to festivals? Have you guys been having discussions around that? Because here in Ireland, there's plenty now. You have like even Animation Dingle, which is now an Academy recognized festival.
Yeah, we were there last year, actually.
How was that experience?
I loved it. It's very different for us. They invited half of the mix. Myself, me, Deck, Will. It was Will. I think Will that's always Will organizing. He's got his fingers in so many pies. It's brilliant. Like, for us, like, I love it. Like, and he's doing so amazingly well for himself. Like, more power to him. But Nick was there. Me, Will. Was Trina there? No, Trina wasn't there, I don't think. But we did a panel on. It was actually about comics to animation, because we all have projects in different levels of production and optioned out at different studios. So and we went down and we did our usual comics spiel, like yap, which anyone into comics in Ireland has heard a million times. But the animation crowd hadn't really been exposed to us that much, so they lapped it up. They thought we were brilliant. So we were treated like kings down there. We went down for 2 or 3 days, and I loved being in a different environment. And like you said, because animation is so strong in Ireland, it was so gratifying just to see, like you said, there were studio heads from all over the world who came to Dingle. It's like it's a world-renowned show at this point. So that was a really interesting one to be, and just kind of we felt like real pretenders, because we're not really animation guys, you know, we're comics guys who were dabbling in animation. So it was a really nice change of pace, and the hotel was lovely. So yeah, I really enjoyed it, because we go to so many comic conventions, and you can start, I hate to say it, but you can start to take it for granted when you've done so many of them. Like, even though if they were taken away from us, I'm sure we'd miss them incredibly and realize that we had it so handy. But it was a nice change of pace, and I'd recommend it to anyone who's an animation / comics student or enthusiast, like, to go down. Now, I think the tickets are quite expensive for students. Was the other thing I did see. I remember thinking they were very dear, but I mean, if you can afford it, well worth it. Well worth it. Some amazing speakers. We learned a lot, and it was great. Yeah, really enjoyed it.
And when you're working on the animation, when you're taking the pitch, will you guys develop like a concept trailer and maybe make a short film before you go into like the full feature? Would that be your plan to do like a teaser? I don't know,
is the answer. Both of those have been talked. I'm pretty sure that there'll be a trailer.
Okay, great.
But and I assume then that gets shown around. I don't know, and I don't know what I'm supposed to say or not supposed to say as well.
Gotcha, into that one.
Although I'm sure the Meala lads would be happy if you were talking to them at some point. Like,
I should, yeah.
So I'm sure there'll be crossover there. But I don't know the answer to that. I know they're planning the festivals and everything else, yes, and trailer, yes, but other than that, I actually don't know. And that's not me saying it because I'm not allowed to say it. I actually don't know. So
are you having fun with the writing of the script now that you're not limited in the way of a comic, one action per panel? Now you can, like, I can have. Has that been?
It's interesting. Because it's on Final Draft, which is a program I hadn't really used before, the screenwriting program. And I'm not the main writer on it. A guy called Shane Perez who's kind of mentoring me on it. Like he was showing me how to format a script and how to get the bones of it together and how the pacing is so different. And he was the one mainly taking. It was so interesting to read his first draft, which I then worked off because he was taking scenes and maybe changing a couple of bits around. Like it is very faithful to the book, but there's some really interesting little changes that I think really were good changes. And like you worry, like, oh, I'm going to be possessive of this, or am I going to be annoyed if someone's trying to change things? But it's not at all. It was quite refreshing actually. And I was like, oh, that's great. I ain't got to take there. And you fleshed out Ishikawa, one of the characters, a little bit there, which I hadn't done so much in the book. So I really appreciated that. And it gave me a really good stepping stone then to do my draft from, because I could see he was basically laying out, it was like screenwriting 101, which is brilliant. Like it's brilliant to go to do a course, whatever, but you can't, it's that hand, like when you go and get mentor or you're an apprentice or something, you can't really beat that where somebody is one-on-one explaining to you how the craft of something works. And there's so much with that similar to like a comic book script. Like there's an awful lot of crossover, which is like always going to be the case. You just have to, like you said, certain things are different, like the pacing, and then you can have different things happening at the same time, which is a big one. But there was enough of that I was comfortable going in, that I had a fair idea of how to do it. And I just loved, it was such a change of pace. Writing is such, I get myself in trouble. Like I just find, I don't think it's difficult. I have to be careful when I choose my words here. It's I don't want to flame this debate up again. Writers versus artists in comics.
Oh, here we go.
It's not difficult. It's not the way comics drawing. It's like 12 hours at the table, hunched over. It's not that kind of difficult. It's more taxing mentally, and you have to be so turned on all the time. But I found it so refreshing to do a couple of weeks of pure writing. And I was like, oh my God, I have to go draw pages now next week. It's going to be torture. Because it was just such a nice change. But then if I wrote all the time, I'd probably be dying to draw some pages. You know what I mean? So it's the swings and roundabouts of it all. But I really enjoyed it. Sorry, long-winded answer. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And it's fair play to you as well to point out, because it's something that we talk about in the classroom as well, which is like there's a physical toll when you're also illustrating and drawing as well. We talk a lot more about the ergonomics, like the sitting position at the drawing desk, and just stretching out and stuff before you go in for a long drawing session. Is that something you guys talk among your? I think my.
Yeah, so you're breaking up a little bit, I think. Can you hear me? Look. Oh, you can see you again now.
Oh, I'm back again.
You're back. Oh.
Whoops. I think I'm good.
Yeah.
And that one.
My signal looks all right, so maybe it's on your end. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, it's probably.
I can hear you. Will I answer the question anyway?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's something I'm very conscious of. And like, I'm getting older now, which is not something I ever thought would happen when I was in my 20s and 30s, drawing for fun, doing all-nighters like it was nobody's business. So yeah, like they've got the proper chairs and I've got everything now. I'm much more conscious of that in the last 10 odd years. I haven't really had any back pain or anything like that, which a lot of the other lads have had, and shoulder pain and wrist pain. Repetitive stuff, strain going on their wrist. It's all something we need to be aware of now. And it's not something you'd ever think, because it's not sexy or glamorous when you're going into comics. Like, oh, I better watch out for your posture. Oh, very important. But yeah, it is something that should be discussed. And again, like, that's the kind of thing people need to be aware of. I don't think it shouldn't be scaring anybody off at the same time, but it's certainly something that should be on the agenda. Yeah, it's very, very important. And I sit on all these chairs are expensive, but you can get them secondhand in Gumtree, which is what I did. This is the Aeron. I can't remember the one everyone uses. I can't remember the specific model name, but it's very good for your back. And I have a couple of these and I'm always conscious now of the fact that I need to be sitting properly and not just slumped over, which isn't something you're concerned about in your 30s or very much or your 20s. But I'm kicking the arse of 50 now, so I have to start. I have to start waking up to all the potential pitfalls. But so far, so good, touch wood. Knees are working. Facts work.
But like this is it's like anything. It's like the work you put in now is what last year, later on. It's like when Frank Miller was over, he was like straight up telling me he broke his shoulder but didn't do the physio, and now he's like, yeah, I lit my lesson on that one. He was like,
well, it bites you in the arse big time, like absolutely.
Yeah, these are the ones, and he was interesting as well when he was over to show him introducing some animation studios, because his style he's been adapting. There's one studio in particular, and we could see what he could do with animation. So definitely, it seems that again, sequential art, that kind of symbiotic relationship between the two interchanging. For yourself, Stephen, if folks want to kind of find out, like keep in touch, see what you're doing, do you keep much in the way of a blog these days or social media, or is it just follow the books as they come out?
No, the blog. I haven't touched the blog in a long time. Social media. I am on Twitter, or what's Twitter called now? Whatever.
Who knows? At this point,
I'm on it. I'm not active enough. I should be on it more. If you just type in Stephen Mooney on Twitter or Stephen Mooney Facebook, wherever you'll find it'll come up, and my email will come up in Google if anyone wants to get in touch. I've no problem answering questions or anything if people want to get on to me. And any of the lads or girls are very good. Like you say, we're all quite happy to kind of try and help people up that ladder behind us. Like, because it's, I know I appreciate that when people were up ahead of me, and it was very valuable. So I have no problem. If anyone has a question or anything they want to get on to me, just look me up on the Google and you'll find me. But no, I'm not. My social media is sorely lacking, I have to say. Declan's brilliant at that. William's brilliant at that. I am shocking at that. Self-promotion is not my strong suit, unfortunately, but that should be a strong suit for anyone who's listening. Do a good job of that, because it's so important in this day and age to have your own, I hate saying brand or whatever online, but it's an unfortunate truth that it needs to be the case. And some of the lads are brilliant at doing that, and I should be better at it, frankly.
No, it's true. We were just talking this morning about, working for yourself and the non-billable hours, like the work you have to do, and no one's paying you, but you need to do it to sustain the business, because that's what it is. Yeah. Well, listen, thanks so much, Stephen. Really appreciate you taking the time out to speak as well. And hopefully it won't be like a million years till I see you again in person at some stage.
I'm sure you'll see me knocking around the usual shows.
That's awesome. Thanks so much, Stephen.
Thanks for having me.
My thanks again to Stephen for taking the time to join me. Hopefully we'll touch base again and follow up as Half Past Danger, the movie, gets further along into development. And again, really appreciate his candor and transparency in the conversation, just talking about the day-to-day as a comic book creator. So if you haven't already, be sure to check out Half Past Danger. If you go to many of the comic shops, particularly here in Dublin, you'd be able to secure perhaps, if not back issues, definitely, hopefully a trade will be available to you. If this is your first time joining us here in Creator and Conversation, and many thanks to the new subscribers. If you are just discovering us, you're welcome to look back over our previous episodes. This will be our 40th episode, and we are going to go for 52 as the plan, so 12 more, and we're going to wrap at season 1 and then come back then, and we're going to serialize these into more of a season setting then going forward, different volumes. But if you haven't already, really appreciate it if you consider liking or subscribing, adding us to your listening lists wherever you get your podcasts, and feel free to leave a comment or even email us at info@TASQart, that's TASQART.com, Ireland's premier academy of sequential art, design and production. Until next time, this has been a copyright production of Macaulay Consultancy 2025.